All right, so I am here with Brigit from Biddy Tarot, and we're going to talk about a few things and just get her perspective on tarot and the whole industry and her just perspective. So why don't we start? So my first question for you is tell us what your tarot initiation was. How did you get into reading the cards?
Yeah, so I started reading probably when I was about 18, and it all happened when I went with a friend. We were out shopping at a market, and we were a bit bored, and we thought, oh, why don't we go and get like a tarot reading? So we went and had a tarot reading, and both of us were about to embark on this big journey to Germany for 6 months on exchange, and had the reading. And I remember in mine the Emperor card came up. And the lady was like, oh, wow, you're going to meet like an amazing boyfriend. It'll be, this amazing relationship. And I thought, oh, wow, that sounds great. And then I went over to Germany, and lo and behold, yes, did meet a lovely boy who is not my husband now, but at the time was wonderful. And I thought, geez, this works, And then my next thought was, well, how hard could it be? Maybe I could learn this. So I really set about learning the cards from about 18 onwards. And at that time, I was studying at university. So it's good to have a bit of a distraction, I think, when you're at school. And the tarot was certainly my distraction at that point. So I invested so much into learning the cards, reading as many books as I could. And yeah, really started taking off probably within a few years and reading professionally from quite an early age. You asked about tarot initiation, and when I think about the concept of initiation, in my mind I was sort of thinking, do you know what? I feel like I'm being initiated like every day. Every time I pick up the cards, every book I read, I think, oh my gosh, oh wow. It's like a constant learning process for me. And even though I've been, with the tarot cards for 15 years, it's just constantly my eyes are opening up to so many different perspectives. So, tarot initiation seems to be a continual process.
I definitely agree. And I think when I was doing the review or really working through your book, Tarot Foundations, on my blog, one of the things that I tried to get across to people was that you're always learning tarot. Mm-hmm. And as you grow as a person, I feel like the cards change and evolve. So I think that ongoing initiation, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
So I think that you never truly learn them. You're always discovering them.
Yeah.
So it's definitely good. I think any good reader will tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's being initiated.
Yeah.
Do you use any other oracles or?
No.
Have you?
So I've always worked with the Rider-Waite deck to start. Yeah. So I have tried other decks, but I always get frustrated because I like to know everything straight away. And so I look at a new deck and I think, oh, I don't know you, and I sort of can't be bothered going through the whole learning process. Oracles, I've got the Doreen Virtue Mermaids and Dolphins one. But that works beautifully with my, 1 and 3 year old at the moment. Yeah. And I've always been a little bit, I'm curious about the Lenormand deck. Yeah. And I met Carrie Paris on the weekend at the TarotCon, and yeah, I think she's getting me into the flow with Lenormand and whether it's a possibility.
I think it's something that, it's something that is just blowing up. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of taken it on as well. But I think that anyone who is used to tarot, even if you decide that you don't want to, read Lenormand strictly, I think that you can pull so much great information from it, especially with the way that the cards go together in these sort of combinations, which is a little bit different than the way most people read tarot. So I think it's worth checking out.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah, I think check it out. So I want to ask you this. I know you teach tarot to people all over the world, and you have a wonderful blog, and you have great books, resources for people to check out. But what are some challenges that you still face with tarot, if there are any?
Yeah, challenges. It's a really good question. I think right now what I'm sort of working through is this balance between predictive readings. You know, tell me when this has happened, when this will happen. Should I do this, and so forth. Predictive stuff versus choice-based readings. So where, you know, it's more about empowering a client to make decisions of their own and to take accountability for those decisions, and how as a reader I can influence, you know, whether they're sort of following the predictive path or the choice-based path. So in fact, just yesterday, I've been reworking my own tarot reading page, because I want to get more on the path of helping people make choices independently, as opposed to saying this is where your future is heading and you can't do anything about it. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's probably, I wouldn't necessarily call it a challenge, it's an opportunity. But it's an opportunity to make a change there. And I think the other one would be around just maintaining my own energy levels, because I find that I do get quite burnt out sometimes. You know, I'm devoting all my working life now to Biddy Tarot, and I know my energy levels do get very sapped easily.
And I totally understand that. So let me ask you this, because you're kind of reworking your format for doing readings, does that mean that when you're working with a client, do you like them to bring something to the table? So do you want them to sit down with you and say, I want to know about this, this, and this, or do you still, or have you ever worked with them from a I'm just going to tell you what I'm getting basis? So how does your reading work in regards to that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I mostly read via email, so it ends up being quite a sort of one-way communication. I don't get to have so much dialogue, but I'm starting to discover some different ways to create that open environment where I can get some insight firstly from my clients. So now I'm starting to ask, you know, what is it that you want to achieve out of this situation? You know, and what are some of the blockers that are getting in the way right now? Okay, how do we use that to then help you work through those issues and challenges? And then obviously I'll do the reading, you know, as I see it, but in that reading I'll be having sort of some open-ended questions for my client to think about. And by the time, you know, I've sent that email to the client, then we can also have a bit of, you know, to and fro to help them understand what that means for them, and also for them to open up how it sort of resonates with them, because that sometimes triggers more ideas for me as well.
I understand. That's wonderful. I think that it's good to have a dialogue. You know, I think some people think of it as being this very set in stone, predictive type of thing, and I think that for me, I've seen people get the idea of telling you a set of possibilities and predicting something. I think some people get that confused. People think that if you're not telling them a set future, that you're not really telling them anything specific. So but I do think that it's good to have that dialogue and have your client working with you. And I think that that's something that I'm seeing people wanting more of as well. So,
yeah.
Have you had any tarot blunders? Any funny things happen? Goof ups? Anything like that?
Yeah, actually, I ended up being quite public, actually. So I run what I call Tarot Circle on my blog. So I'll take someone's reading and their spread, and then I like to interpret that reading, and then everyone else starts to share their comments about the reading as well. So great learning opportunity. But about 6 months ago, I was working with a reading, and I had actually misinterpreted what the client was asking of the cards. I thought that they were saying, you know, will I get back with my ex? And in fact, they actually just wanted to move on and so forth. So I had started interpreting the reading along this assumption that they wanted this outcome, but really they wanted another outcome. And so then I actually wrote a follow-up post from that to say, well, okay, you know what? Make sure you know exactly what your client is asking you. And if you're not sure, you ask, and then you start the reading.
Yeah. That's great advice, though.
Yeah. Because oftentimes, you know, I've had it even recently where another person was asking, will I get back with my ex? Oh, and by the way, they were a complete jerk on the weekend, and, you know, they were seeing this other girl, and, you know, oh, I hate them so much. And I thought, Okay, well, so do we want to get back with your ex, or are we thinking about moving on? Like, where are we at?
So I think that sometimes when you're working with a client, not only do you have to know what they're asking, but you have to help them know what they're asking as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought with clients that you really need to get them to be at a place where they truly know what the heart of the question is.
Yeah.
And that's something that I wanted to devote more time to exploring. So I feel like that's kind of a hit for me.
Good.
So you touched on sometimes you feel burned out. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Like what do you feel like is the cause of that, and what do you do to kind of remedy that situation when you're feeling burned out or bogged down from doing readings?
Yeah. Well, I guess, I'm in a very fortunate position where I've got a lot of traffic coming through to my site. So that often translates to, quite a few requests for readings every single day. So I might be working through 4 or 5 readings a day, 5 or 6 days a week. And when you're sort of devoting a lot of energy and mental energy into it, it does become really sort of almost tiring or exhausting. And there are points where I get to and I think, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm just trying to get through these readings. And then I think, well, that's not really what I want to be doing. That's not right for me. It's not right for my clients. So you'll often see, I reckon it's about every 2 weeks now, I seem to be putting up, I'm taking a break. So, that's the beauty of having your own business, is that you can just say, no, I need some time out. And I think that's so important to do that, because otherwise, if you're completely burnt out when you're doing readings, you're not giving the best to your clients. And so again, I'm starting to really shift how I'm doing my readings, and I'm focusing more now on very high quality sort of end-to-end type readings. So where I can invest more time, more energy into the one reading instead of trying to get through lots of readings, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
I'm in experimentation phase at the moment, so we'll see what happens if it works.
Can't wait to hear. I feel like I understand everything that you're saying. So it's good that you can acknowledge that. I think some people don't acknowledge that. And I've heard many stories about readers and energy workers who do readings or do energy work, and they start to take on that energy because they're not taking a break from it. So I think that it's good to acknowledge. And really, you want to put your money where your mouth is. If you're telling people to do this, this, and this, you want to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
So,
yep.
Yeah, so I think that that's good. So let me ask you this, and this is a question that I know a lot of other readers probably have, and I wonder this from my own personal experience. How do you deal with a difficult client when you have one?
Yeah, actually, I was asking on Facebook even like just today, who's giving me some examples of some really difficult clients, and I can feel a blog post coming on this one. But look, I just personally, I don't like dealing with the negative energy that comes from a difficult client. So when it gets to a point where a client isn't really bringing themselves to the readings, so they're not really engaged in the readings. Let me give you an example. I was doing a face-to-face reading for a gentleman. I don't think he's ever had a reading before. I don't think he knew what to expect, and he was just trying it out. But dealing the cards, and then I'd say a few things, and nah, that's not me. That's not me. I'm like, okay, how about we focus on this? Drawing some more cards, and then nah. Just nothing was landing, and I wasn't getting anything back. So I thought, oh crap, what do I do? What do I do now? And I just said to him, look, I'm really sorry, but I just don't think we're going anywhere with this. You're not getting anything out of it. I'm not getting anything out of it. How about we just agree? I'll give you your money back. I don't care. Just let's agree, and we'll walk out of here, and we'll both be happy, It's no reflection on you, no reflection on me. Let's just, call it quits. And I was thinking, well, what were some of my other alternatives? I could have just taken the money, done the reading, and delivered a really crappy reading. But that doesn't feel right, does it? Or I could have said, oh, well, you're not giving me anything, but I've spent my time helping you, so I'm going to keep the money and you're going to walk out here with nothing. So I'm quite generous in terms of like refunding money or being human about what, like what clients have invested as well. It's not something I do often in terms of, giving refunds and so forth, but I'd much prefer to just give the money back. We're all done, move on to happy places,
I think that that's a great way of looking at it, because I've seen people try to take it on as a challenge, where they feel like you said, well, I've put my energy into it. I'm sorry you didn't get something out of it, but I'm still getting paid for my time. And I've had people sit down with me and say, well, before I give you money, tell me something so I know that you're the real thing. And I give a disclaimer. I'm like, I'm not here to prove anything to you. Yeah. I'm not here to make you believe in psychics or tarot cards. Your reading is only going to be as good as you allow it to be, really, is how I feel. So, I think that sometimes you really just have to say, I'm sorry, but like you did, I'm not getting anything out of it, and neither are you. And just hope that either they find a better reader that fits them, or that they open their mind up, or something different happens. But I think that it's good. I think that's good advice for people who are starting, because one of the things that you hear about from students is that they feel like they're giving readings to people who aren't being receptive, but they feel like they have to do that almost as like a rite of passage. And I think that maybe that doesn't have to be the case. So it's good.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, and we can kind of end here. What are some areas of tarot that you think need innovation, or that you feel like there's room to grow or almost get a little bit more contemporary and modern?
Well, let me tell you, I've got a newfound respect for history and tarot now. I was at the tarot conference, or the Tarot Con in Sydney on the weekend, and I learned a huge amount about the history. So, and it helped me really connect to what the cards are about. So I would say that I wouldn't change anything about the tarot per se, but there is one thing I would love to see, different about the cards, and that is, I guess, the general public's perception of tarot. So right now, people look at the tarot cards and go, they might be like, oh, evil, satanic, or like fortune teller, or, oh, you do tarot. Oh, okay. They think you're a little bit kooky and something's a bit odd about you. But what we know of the tarot is that it's this wonderful, deep spiritual tool that can be used for, self-help. So I'd love to be able to see tarot being normalized in society. We all read like self-help books, right? Well, some of us might. So why can't we be using tarot just as we, use a self-help book? I was walking through the park the other day, and I don't know why, but a vision came to me where I thought, these people sitting on the park bench, what if they just, brought out a few tarot cards, and then, in their lunch break, they're just doing some cards to see how everything's sitting with them. What if we could just have cards as part of our normal makeup and our normal day, and where there wasn't all this sort of woo-woo around them. So I'd love to see that being the new thing of tarot, I suppose.
I totally agree. I think that in some ways maybe we're moving toward that. But I think that I don't know what it is about the tarot. Maybe it's just because it's rooted in this sort of esoteric, mystical, magical thing that people can't separate the two. But I think that I feel like it could definitely happen, and I think that we're seeing more people. I mean, like if I saw you out somewhere, you look like an everyday normal person. I'm not putting anyone in a box, because I'm kind of crazy sometimes. But, but I think that there are all these different people that use it, but there's this certain kind of person that people on the outside imagine you to be if you read tarot. And I wish that would change. I mean, and we see things like, right now, Deepak Chopra and Oprah are doing the meditation challenge, and and we see all of that happening, but it's sort of like it's once removed in a way, so that it's kind of like mainstream, and they kind of take part of it away to make it mainstream. And I think that maybe that's either paving the way, or maybe it's taking it further away from it. Who knows? But I think that you just have to challenge the boundaries a little bit. So maybe you should read some tarot cards on a bench. I know I pulled cards at work sometime, and I actually lost a card from my deck the other day, and I keep thinking that it must be on the floor somewhere at work, and someone's going to find it in their office or desk and think, what is this?
Yeah. Which card is it, by the way? Do you know?
It's a card from my deck, so it's a Lenormand card.
And
it's actually called the Lilies, and it's the card that is about kind of zen, getting back to yourself, kind of taking care of yourself, self-awareness. So it could be a very pivotal message for someone. So I think that I'm always fascinated by cards getting lost and scattered and randomly finding them. So
that's right.
Why don't we announce the person that got picked for the Tarot Foundation giveaway from my blog? And the person that was picked was Shelly from Sparrow Tarot.
Yay!
So there was a lot of really wonderful people who kind of participated and asked questions and really jogged my creativity as far as things that I want to approach in the future. So, but she is the person that got picked when I drew the names out of a hat. So we will pass that along to her. Do you have anything else you want to add before we go?
Oh, no, I don't know. I would just say, I encourage everyone to make tarot just a part of their everyday life, have fun with it. Let it just be part of your own inner makeup, and don't get sort of caught up in having to know about mystical systems and whatever. If that's not your cup of tea yet, then you don't have to go down that path. Just take a card, look at it, see what energy or lessons it can bring to you, and work with it that way. And I think that's that's another way that we can start to normalize tarot a lot more, just by bringing it into our daily lives and having fun with it. Yeah. And I also just want to say a big thank you to having me on your blog and trying out this new cool face-to-face interview. It's fun.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate all of your time and energy and all the things that you share with me and with everyone else. You've been a great resource, and you really connect people. And anyone who's watching this, I encourage you to check out Biddy Tarot and check out Brigit's book, Tarot Foundations, because it really is great, and you've broken it down into steps, and I think that takes this scary intimidation away from it. So thank you. And I want to add one last thing, because you're talking about having tarot be this sort of everyday thing. So I've always had this vision that I wish tarot would get to a point where if I sent you a tarot card in the mail without anything written, you would just get what I was talking about. Sort of like in the Victorian times, they had the language of flowers, and so you would leave a flower and people would know what message you're talking about. So I always just thought that would be fun. So there's for hoping that's how it'll happen.
That might be your new community project, to just, leave cards around the place.
I thought about it.
Yeah.
So never know. All right. So thank you for being here, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Great. Thanks, Shane.
All right. Take care.
Bye.